Prabhu. Again. Who was given 32? He has given 31. Now which one? Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, Text 32. जम्बू प्लक्ष शाल्मली कुश क्रौंच शाक पुष्कर संज्ञास्तेषां परिमाणं पूर्वस्मात् उत्तर उत्तरो यथा संख्यं द्विगुणमानेन बहिः समन्तत उपक्लिप्ताः जम्बू जम्बू प्लक्ष प्लक्ष शाल्मली शाल्मली कुश कुश क्रौंच क्रौंच शाक शाक पुष्कर पुष्कर संज्ञाः known as तेषां of them परिमाणं measurement पूर्वस्मात् पूर्वस्मात् from the former उत्तरः उत्तरः the following yatha according to sankhyan number dviguna twice as much manena with a measure bahi outside samantatah all around upakliptah produced. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: the names of the islands are Jambu, Plaksha, Shalmali, Kusha, Krauncha, Shaka and Pushkara. Each island is twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance, beyond which is the next island. Please repeat. The names of the islands are Jambu, Plaksha, Shalmali, Kusha, Krauncha, Shaka and Pushkara. Each island is twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance, beyond which is the next island. Purport: the ocean in each planetary system has a different type of liquid. How they are situated is explained in the next verse. So if you just read the translation of the previous verse. When Priyavrata drove his chariot behind the sun, the rims of his chariot wheels created impressions that later became 7 oceans, dividing the planetary system known as Bhumandala into 7 islands. So we'll just go to the next verse. Sharodekshurasoda suroda ghrutoda kshirodada dhimandoda sudhoda shuddhodah sapta jaladhayah sapta dvipa parikha ivabhyantaradvipa samana ekaikashyena yathanu purvam saptasvapi bahirdvipeshu पृथक परित उपकल्पितास्तेषु जम्वादिषु बर्हिष्मति पतिर अनुव्रतानात्मजान् आग्निध्रेद्म जिह्वा यज्ञबाहु हिरण्यरेतो घृतपृष्ठ मेधातिथि वीतिहोत्र संज्ञान यथा संख्येनैकैकस्मिन् एकम् एवाधिपतिं विदधे. The 7 oceans respectively contain salt water, sugarcane juice, liquor, clarified butter, milk, emulsified yogurt and sweet drinking water. All the islands are completely surrounded by these oceans, and each ocean is equal in breadth to the island it surrounds. Maharaj Priyavrata, the husband of Queen Barhishmati, gave sovereignty over these islands to his respective sons, namely Agnidhra, Idhmajihva, Yajnabahu, Hiranyareta, Bhrutaprishtha, Medhatithi and Vitihotra. Thus they all became kings by the order of their father. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is to be understood that all the dvipas or islands are surrounded by different types of oceans, and it is said herein that the breadth of each ocean is the same as that of the island it surrounds. The length of the oceans, however, cannot equal the length of the islands. According to Veeraraghavacharya, the breadth of the first island is 100,000 yojanas. One yojana equals 8 miles, and therefore the breadth of the first island is calculated to be 800,000 miles. The water surrounding it must have the same breadth, but its length must be different. So we'll go to the next verse. दुहितरं चोर्जस्वतीं नामोशनसे प्रायच्छद् यस्याम् आसीद् देवयानी नाम काव्यसुता. King Priyavrata then gave his daughter Urjaswati in marriage to Shukracharya, who begot in her a daughter named Devayani. नैवं विधः पुरुषकार उरुक्रमस्य पुंसां तदङ्घ्रिरजसा जितषड्गुणानां चित्रं विदूरविगतः सकृदाददीत यन्नामधेयमधुना स जहाति बन्धम्. So this is 5.135. My dear king, a devotee who has taken shelter of the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord can transcend the influence of the 6 material waves, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age and death, and he can conquer the mind and 5 senses. However, this is not very wonderful for a pure devotee of the Lord, because even a person beyond the jurisdiction of the 4 castes, in other words, an untouchable, is immediately relieved of bondage to material existence if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. Purport. Shukadeva Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit about the activities of King Priyavrata, and since the king might have had doubts about these wonderful uncommon activities, Shukadeva Goswami reassured him. My dear king, he said, don't be doubtful about the wonderful activities of Priyavrata. For a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is possible because the Lord is also known as Urukrama. Urukrama is a name for Lord Vamanadev, who performed the wonderful act of occupying the 3 worlds with 3 footsteps. Lord Vamanadev requested 3 paces of land from Maharaj Bali, and when Maharaj Bali agreed to grant them, the Lord immediately covered the entire world with 2 footsteps, and for his 3rd step he placed his foot upon Bali Maharaj's head. Sri Jayadeva Goswami says, छलयसि विक्रमणे बलिमद्भुतवामन पदनखनीरजनितजनपावन केशवधृत वामन रूप जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे. All glories to Lord Keshava, who assumed the form of a dwarf. O Lord of the universe, who take away everything inauspicious for the devotees. O wonderful Vamanadev, you tricked the great demon Bali Maharaj by your steps. The water that touched the nails of your lotus feet when you pierced through the covering of the universe purifies all living entities in the form of the river Ganges. Since the Supreme Lord is all-powerful, He can do things that seem wonderful for a common man. Similarly, a devotee who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord can also do wonderful things unimaginable to a common man by the grace of the dust of those lotus feet. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore teaches us to take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam budhau kripaya tava pada pankaja sthita dhuli sadrisham vichintaya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya-lila 20.32. O son of Nanda Maharaj, I am your eternal servant, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Lord Chaitanya teaches us to come in touch with the dust of the Lord's lotus feet, for then there will undoubtedly be all success. Because of the material body, every living entity in material existence is always disturbed by Shadguna, 6 waves: hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, invalidity and death. Furthermore, another Shadguna are the mind and 5 sense organs. Not to speak of a sanctified devotee, even a Chandala, an outcast who is untouchable, is immediately freed from material bondage if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. Sometimes caste Brahmanas argue that unless one changes his body, he cannot be accepted as a Brahmana, for since the present body is obtained as a result of past actions, one who has in the past acted as a Brahmana takes birth in a Brahmana family. Therefore they contend, without such a Brahmanical body, one cannot be accepted as a Brahmana. Herein it is said, however, that even a Vidura Vigata, a Chandala, a 5th class untouchable, is freed if he utters the holy name even once. Being freed means that he immediately changes his body. Sanatana Goswami confirms this. Yatha kanchana tamyati kamsim rasavidhanatah tatha diksha vidhanena dvijatvam jayate nirnam. Haribhakti Vilas 2.12. When a person, even though a Chandala, is initiated by a pure devotee into chanting the holy name of the Lord, his body changes as he follows the instructions of the spiritual master. Although one cannot see how his body has changed, we must accept on the grounds of the authoritative statements of the Shastras that he changes his body. This is to be understood without arguments. This verse clearly says, Sajahati Bandham, he gives up his material bondage. The body is a symbolic representation of material bondage according to one's karma. Although sometimes we cannot see the gross body changing, chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord immediately changes the subtle body, and because the subtle body changes, the living entity is immediately freed from material bondage. After all, changes of the gross body are conducted by the subtle body. After the destruction of the gross body, the subtle body takes the living entity from his present gross body to another. In the subtle body, the mind is predominant, and therefore if one's mind is always absorbed in remembering the activities of the lotus feet of the Lord, he is to be understood to have already changed his present body and become purified. Therefore, it is irrefutable that a Chandala or any fallen or low-born person can become a Brahmana simply by the method of bona fide initiation. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादां सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So, what a contrast of verses. So, in the beginning, we have been introduced to some of the geography of the Bhumandala planetary system. After who is that? Dhruv Maharaj. After Dhruv Maharaj's rule, then of course there is the brother of Uttanapad, Priyavrata was called, and he was actually a brahmachari. Then Brahma, actually his father, Swayambhu Manu himself, wanted to induce him to accept household life, and of course Narad Muni, who is the spiritual master of Priyavrata, was preaching to him about of course devotional service with renunciation. Can you help me bring my charger? Devotional service imbued with renunciation, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. So he did not want to get into household life, he wanted to remain as a brahmachari and execute his austerities. But since there was a need for an able ruler, Swayambhu Manu wanted that his son accept household life. But he could not go against the preachings of Narada Muni. So he approached Lord Brahma, who is not only the spiritual master of Narada Muni but also his father, so in every way superior to Narada Muni. And Lord Brahma took the instruction of the Lord himself. In fact, Lord Brahma says to Priyavrata that it is the order of the Lord that you accept household life. So Brahma induced him that yes, you are interested in renouncing, but you go into family life and rule this world. And when he was speaking of the world, it was not just this one planet. It was the entire Bhumandal. The entire Bhumandal, the Bhumandal planetary system, in fact, was under the charge of Priyavrata. So it was a huge, massive responsibility, and it was given to a person who was not in the least interested in anything material. And that is quite a paradox, because those who are renunciant, they are not interested in this. But actually, such disinterested persons are the only eligible people to actually rule over the world. A person who is actually greedy of ruling over the world is not qualified to rule over the world. Only a person who has controlled his senses, who is a Goswami, He is the actual conqueror. In the Western world, Alexander, who was a great conqueror, was known as Alexander the Great. Although he was not great as some Eastern kings actually, like Genghis Khan and even others. Of course, in our Vedic civilization there is the Pandavas and even until Parikshit Maharaj, who was the ruler of the entire planet. But even in medieval history, Alexander was known as Alexander the Great. But actually, that is not great. Because we have this verse. Ten 51 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nirjityati dikchakram abhuta vigraho varasanastha samarajavandita griheshu maithunya sukheshu yoshitam kridamrigah purusha ishaniyate. Having conquered the entire circle of directions and being thus free of conflict, that means the undisputed king, a man sits on a splendid throne, receiving praise from leaders who were once his equals. But when he enters the women's chambers where sex pleasure is found, he is led about like a pet animal, O Lord. This is spoken by Muchukunda to Krishna. So this is the fact. Great kings, they have conquered great areas of land, but actually they cannot even control their own senses. A person who can rule over the world is described by Rupa Goswami in this verse. Vacho vegam manasah krodha vegam jihva vegam udaropastha vegam etan veganyo vishaheta dhiraha sarvam abhimam prithivim sasishyat. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So this is in case of a guru. A guru means, who is a guru? Of course, we know the guru as a spiritual master, but a spiritual master can be the Diksha Guru and Siksha Guru also. A king is supposed to be a Siksha Guru of the entire population. There is this verse by Madhvacharya, I think which is in the purport of 7:11:29, if I am not wrong. Let me see if I can find it. Yes. So this verse 7:11:29 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yapatim hari bhavena bhaje shririva tatpara Haryatmana harirloke patya shririva modate. The woman who engages in the service of her husband, following strictly in the footsteps of the goddess of fortune, surely returns home back to Godhead with her devotee husband who lives very happily in the Vaikuntha planets. Now here, who is a guru to who is explained by Madhvacharya. Harirasmin sthita iti strinam bhartari bhavana शिष्याणां च गुरौ नित्यं शूद्राणां ब्राह्मणादिषु भृत्यानां स्वामिनि तथा हरिभाव उदीरितः. A woman should think of her husband as the Supreme Lord. Similarly, a disciple should think of the spiritual master as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A Shudra should think of a Brahmana as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the servant should think of his master as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this way, all of them will automatically become devotees of the Lord. In other words, by thinking this way, all of them will become Krishna conscious. Now, this means that these are natural leaders and they are supposed to be representatives of the Lord. In fact, the king is called Naradeva, and that means he is a God among humans. That means he is a representative of God, and he rules the kingdom according to the instructions of the Lord. Only then will he become actually representative. If I am not representing the Supreme Lord, I am not a representative of the Supreme Lord. So, if I just occupy the post and I do not actually represent what the Supreme Lord stands for and what his laws are, then I am not actually a representative of the Supreme Lord. And therefore I cannot be a guru. A guru is a person who repeats the instructions of Krishna and ensures that the population follows those instructions. So a spiritual master must do this to his disciples, and the king must do this to his subjects, and the parents must do this to their children. A husband should do this to his wife. And therefore, it is said, Gurur na sasyad, svajano na sasyad, pita na sasyad, janani sa sasyad, daivam na tatsyan, napatischa sasyan, namo chayedyah samupeta mrityum. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a relative, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. And let's add to it a king, a ruler. Because, what is that? In the fourth canto there is this verse, explanation. What's this thing? Oh yeah. I think this one, right? Yeah. You see, if we become a leader in any of these 6 capacities or in any capacity, if we become a leader must lead them according to the directions of the Supreme Leader Krishna. And if he does not, then he is actually not a leader, he is a misleader. So now, here, Shashtham Amsham. Okay, let's see this verse. Shreya prajapalanameva rajño yatsam paraye sukritats shashtham amsham hartanyatha hrita punya prajanam arakshita karaharoghamatti. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty for a king. By acting in that way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activities taken away by the citizens, and in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. This is very, very, this is extremely responsible position. These are the consequences of becoming a misleader. Whether in the case of unbona fide spiritual master or an unbona fide king or unbona fide parent, in any of these leadership capacities. So one has to be a representative of the Supreme Lord in all circumstances, and in all places and all times. So if that does not take place, then this is the result. 1/6. Come on. If I kill an animal and eat, then I will have to become that animal in the next life and be killed in the same way and eaten. And if I eat like that 6 times, that means nowadays people are eating that breakfast, lunch and dinner 3 times, and within 2 days he is doing it 6 times. 1/6 of that is one life. And if a country has billions or millions, just imagine the amount of what is 1/6 of that sinful activity. It's immense. We can't even imagine what is the resultant reaction of that. And by becoming a leader of such a misled civilization and misleading them even further, and being elected by those misled people who do not know what is even good for them, one has to partake of all these sinful reactions. So just imagine how dangerous it is to become a leader without, people just want the position without the responsibility. They want the result without the effort. They want the fame without consequence. They want enjoyment without consequence. So that is today's civilization. It's not even a civilization, it's worse than animal. Animals are more responsible. When they have sex, the children that come out, they become responsible for the children. Whereas in human life, the mothers are killing their own children in the womb, where they are supposed to be protected, in the name of abortion, women's rights. The mothers are becoming murderers. So whereas even animals are better than this. Where is the civility in here? It's criminality. All criminals, all rascals. So this is the modern civilization. Forget about spiritual protection, no material protection even. Even the body of such a person is not protected. And the laws also do not support the child in the womb because he has no voice. The animals have no voice, therefore they also don't have rights. Blacks at one point did not have rights, they shouted, they got their rights. Women once did not have rights, they shouted, they got their rights. Where will the child shout? Where will the animal shout? So they will not have rights. But that such actions are not devoid of consequences. So therefore, only responsible people should be given power. Yesterday also I was saying this. People say with great power comes great responsibility. But it's not that after you become powerful then you become responsible. No, you have to be responsible first and then you should actually be given power. And we quoted this example of the recent Prime Ministership of Rishi Sunak in the UK. So he is a perfect example of an Asuric civilization in the sense that, maybe he does not even know what he is doing, but namesake, just like Varnashram, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, is actually a scientific system of civilization. But it was abused. It was abused, and now it is only namesake Brahmanas, and namesake all this caste system. So this is called by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as Asura Varnashram, atheistic or demoniac Varnashram system. The Daiva Varnashram, the actual God-given Varnashram system is Guna Karma Vibhagashaha, according to Guna and Karma, and not particularly according to Janma. Yes, Janma is a product of Guna and Karma of the previous life, that is true. So Janma represents the Guna and Karma of a person. But that is not namesake. What if he is born in a family who are known as Brahmanas but who practice nothing of Brahmanical life? So that Janma is not Brahmana Janma. It is a birth in which he is misled from birth. And that is actually an unfortunate position rather than a fortunate position. So yes, birth is the product of Guna and Karma. So if I am born in a so-called Brahmin family who are actually atheists or following nothing of Brahminical culture, so to be born in a misled family, what was my Guna and Karma? So it is not very pious actually. Although there may be some trace of piety, but the real piety, therefore, the Janma, therefore, is called Dvija. Even if one is in a disadvantageous position by an unfortunate birth, and let's face it, in Kali Yuga, Kalau Shudra Sambhavaha, in Kali Yuga everybody is a Shudra, actually. And if we want salvation from such a birth, then there is a second chance, a second birth. And this is exactly what Srila Prabhupada just mentioned in the purport, that a person changes his body at the time of initiation, at least a subtle body. And this depends on how wholeheartedly he accepts the instructions of the spiritual master. To the proportion of that, the subtle body changes. And basically, what is a change? It is not something like a new suit that he wears now. It is a change in consciousness. how much I am agreeable to Krishna, how much I am agreeable to the spiritual master. That is the change. The change has to happen in our willingness to surrender to Krishna. That is the change. It's not just a change of body externally, but internally nothing changes. So, anyway, so this Asuric Varnashram system is where only birth or only names matter, but not the quality matters. So similarly, now we have in the UK one Rajarshi. He is a Raj, he is a Prime Minister, and his name is Rishi, Rajarshi. Namesake, but there is a tweet that became viral among devotees. He is supporting the livestock industry, the beef industry, and he says, "I stand by the livestock farmers," and he tweeted like that. And is that a Rajarshi? I mean, Maharaj Parikshit was the exact opposite. Somebody was killing a cow, and he took out his sword to kill the man who was killing the cow. So they don't even know what is religious principles, and how can he be a Rishi? Name Rishi, position Raja, but nothing to do with. So that is actually symbolic of the civilization that we are living in. Not only among Brahmanas, any religion, for example, if you take any religion, they are only professing themselves as followers of certain religious system, but they follow none of the rules mentioned therein. One calls himself a Christian, and in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, and he eats beef and every meat. Thou shalt not kill. What happened to that? Oh, that's for human beings. Who interprets that way? Somebody who is at his own convenience. Human being, the word should have been murder. And actually some of the editions of the Bible, they changed it to thou shalt not murder. They changed it according to their liking. And even in Islam, it is said in the Quran that blood is haram, which is why they try to put the animal upside down and slit the throat open so that all the blood comes out. But how can you guarantee that every drop of blood came out? And when you cut the meat, there are no blood capillaries, blood vessels inside, capillaries inside. There is not a single droplet of blood. How can you ensure? So actually, blood is haram means you cannot eat meat. That is the real meaning. But they try to circumvent that by draining out the blood. That is even worse than killing an animal in a single stroke. In our Vedic civilizations, there is Balidan provision for those who are addicted to eating meat. Once a month you can offer a goat to Kali. That too outside the precincts of the city. In the forest there used to be this temple, Kali temple, and there one goes and Balidan. And actually Durga Devi, she doesn't eat that meat because she is a Vaishnavi Devi. So Vaishnava does not eat meat. So it's her hobgoblins, all these female ghosts that she is in charge of. They are the ones who eat it actually. Such offerings. She doesn't directly eat it. She only eats the remnants of her husband, who is the Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. He is the greatest of the Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva. So, and even in that killing, the killing is done by Jhatka method. Jhatka means in one stroke, in an instant, the animal must be killed. Of course, that doesn't make the person who sacrificed the animal immune to that killing. He has to face it. He has to say the mantra before killing the animal, that mam saha khadati iti mamsa. He has to define the word mamsa, meat. Mam saha khadati iti mamsa. I am killing him, eating him. He has the right to eat me in his next life. That is the meaning of mamsa. And then they can eat. So even that killing is there, it is killed in one stroke. When Mrigari was killing animals, half killing them, Narad Muni said, if you want to kill, at least kill them fully. Don't half kill them. The pain that you are giving them increases your sinful activity many-fold than just killing them once. So this half killing, slitting open the throat, that is even worse than just killing the animal. Far worse. So in the name of religion, nobody is following any religious rules. In any religion. Everything has become namesake. So, a ruler who has come with the rishi name, sage, named as a sage, but only in namesake. So that is actually, he is a perfect symbol of today's civilization. All namesake, everything is namesake. So anyway, the real, responsibility of a ruler is here. One who cannot deliver his dependents. That means he has to act on behalf of the Supreme Lord. And therefore he has to be given respect as good as the Supreme Lord. Sakshad haritvena samasta shastrairuktas tatha bhavyata eva sadbhi kintu prabhorya priya eva tasya vande guru shri charanaravindam. Why we accept the spiritual master as good as Hari? Because he is a perfect representative of Hari. Not that he is actually Hari, but he is a perfect representative of Hari, and therefore he should be given the exact same respect as Hari. In fact, Krishna says even further, Madbhakta Puja Bhyadhika. The worship of my devotee is even more important than worship of me. That does not mean, oh okay, now I'll stop Krishna worship, I'll only worship Guru. No. Because if you really worship Guru, Guru says, worshipping Guru means to follow his instruction, and Guru's instruction is to serve Krishna. So, we cannot do away with one of them, either one of them. We have to serve the instructions of Guru, or in other words, we have to serve Krishna through the instructions of the Guru, not independently or directly. So, here Priyavrata is being described that he is doing these extraordinarily wonderful activities, that he manifested a second sun. I mean, the sun, how powerful is the sun? We are making lights, bulbs, which when sun comes out, they are not even visible, these lights. And here Priyavrata manifested a second sun as bright as the sun, and he was moving because he did not like that there is night, and he manifested a second, so powerful. And how did he do such things, extraordinary things? By the rims of his chariot, oceans were being manifesting. I mean, who can do these things? It's only either the Lord or his devotee. In Vamanadev incarnation, as is mentioned in the purport, he did extraordinary thing. With 2 steps he conquered the entire universe. And when he put his second foot on the sky and conquered the entire sky, he actually pierced the covering of the universe, and then the water of the Karanudaka ocean dripped into the universe, and that is now known as Ganga. And it flows through all the 3 planetary systems. In fact, the entire all planetary systems of the universe. So, that is Urukrama. And we have devotees who have done extraordinary activities. Hanuman, for example. In Ramayana, seemingly, Ram wasn't doing much. Ramchandra Bhagavan. He was walking, and Hanuman was the one who was carrying mountains, who was jumping here, jumping there, across the ocean. But Hanuman was never proud that I am doing more than Ram. I am more than Ram. No. He always knew that all my power is due to Ram. He never lost track of that. Oh, you see, Ram cannot fly, I can fly. No. He knew that whatever he was doing was because of Ram's power. Ram, just by his anger, the ocean was entirely agitated. The personality of the ocean, he came forward to offer respects to Ramchandra Bhagavan. Otherwise his ocean would have been dry. Stones floated on the ocean just by the will of the Lord. He can do anything. But the devotee, and even in the case of Mahabharata, Arjuna, he was the hero. Krishna was just a charioteer driver. So Krishna always wants to put himself behind and push the fame of his devotee. Whereas the devotee does the opposite. He puts himself behind and pushes the fame of the Lord. So there is always a competition between the Lord and his devotees on who will become the better servant. The devotee wants to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. The Lord wants to become the servant of that devotee who was the servant of the servant of Krishna. So there is always this competition of who can become greater servant of servant. Just opposite in this material world where everybody wants to become, the competition is to become the master. They want to become first in that way. So, the responsibility. So, Shukadeva Goswami, while describing geography of the universe, Bhumandal, suddenly came to a verse which is completely unrelated, seemingly. Right? You see how he came, sharp contrast. You see this. He was describing, how the oceans and, the salt water and liquor and sweet water and all these things. Suddenly, he said, a devotee who has taken shelter of the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord can transcend the influence of the 6 material waves, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age and death. And he can conquer the mind and 5 senses. However, this is not very wonderful for a pure devotee of the Lord, because even a person beyond the jurisdiction of the 4 castes, in other words, an untouchable, is immediately relieved of bondage to material existence if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. So how come suddenly he said this? So Prabhupada explains in the purport that just in case Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee, he wouldn't have any doubts. But Parikshit Maharaj is representing us. We are the doubtful souls who are in this material world. So to remove our doubts, he spoke to Parikshit Maharaj. How come he is doing such wonderful activities? So, what to speak of conquering the entire Bhumandal and having this undisputed kingdom, he has conquered over your senses also. There are 6 urges of all these things. He is conquered. In fact, conquering the entire universe is not as glorious as conquering one's own senses. A Goswami, what is the meaning of Goswami? Swami means master. Go means the senses. Goswami means one who is the master of his senses. And one who has not controlled his senses, he is a dāsa. He is a servant of his senses. So nowadays there is one, I think in the Bollywood there is an actress with the name Goswami. Some Goswami, some actress name, somebody was telling me. Huh? We have one more Goswami in the news channel, Arnab Goswami, who cannot control his mouth. And we have a so-called actress named Goswami, and she is going without any shyness. And what Bollywood? I mean, this Bollywood means what? Half naked, and that is Goswami. So it has become only namesake. Everything is namesake now. Everything is namesake. There is no value to any names. They don't hold any value. Previously, this name Goswami is only reserved to the people who have controlled their senses. It is not a hereditary title. Even in Bengal, in Bangladesh also, and West Bengal, there is a Goshai. Goshai means Goswami. The guy eating fish, his name is Goshai. What is the meaning of that? Huh? And there is Nityananda Vamsa. There is a family members of Nityananda. But they are not following anything. What is the use of such family? The real family of the Lord is the people who actually follow. Because honestly, the Lord is the Father. Sarva yonishu kaunteya aham bija pradapita. Everybody belongs to the family of Nityananda. But those who actually follow the instructions of the Lord, they are proper children of the Lord. And those who are not following, they are what is that called? Outlaws. So anyway, so Priyavrata is such a great devotee that he did all these things. So here Shukadeva Goswami is reassuring him, Parikshit, that my dear king, don't be doubtful about the wonderful activities of Priyavrata. For a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is possible because the Lord is known as Urukrama. And yatra yogeshwara Krishna, yatra partho dhanurdharaha, tatra shrir vijayo bhutir dhruvani tirmatir mama. A person may be a great yogi and he may have these great mystic powers. But a devotee is not just a yogi, but he has taken shelter of the Yogeshwara, who is the master and the originator of yoga system. And therefore, by the mercy of the Yogeshwara, a devotee can easily do many, many things which people, ordinary yogis also cannot imagine to do. And therefore, Priyavrata could do things that are unimaginable to the common man. So there is this verse of the achievements of a devotee. So this is from the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 8.5.47. Klesha bhuryalpa sarani karmani viphalani va dehinam vishayarthanam natathaivarpitam tvai. Karmis are always anxious to accumulate wealth for their sense gratification, but for that purpose they must work very hard. Yet, even though they work hard, the results are not satisfying. Indeed, sometimes their work results only in frustration. But devotees who have dedicated their lives to the service of the Lord can achieve substantial results without working very hard. These results exceed the devotees' expectations. And this is only because they take shelter of the Lord, and by the holy name of the Lord, everything becomes possible. And as it is said, even a Chandala becomes purified just by chanting the holy name of the Lord once. And this is not an exaggeration. You may say, come on, how can you say like that? I am chanting, for many years, nothing is, I am not that I am liberated, I am still in this material world. How is it that you are saying that a Chandala is completely purified by just once chanting? How is that possible? The difference is how surrendered we are. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote this book Sharanagati, a collection of songs on how one should surrender to the Lord. Beautiful songs, touching upon all the 6 aspects of surrender, which are Anukulyasya sankalpah pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati iti vishvaso goptritve varnam tatha atmanikshepa karpanya shadvidha sharanagati. So these 6 aspects of surrender: accepting things favorable to Krishna, rejecting things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness, having faith in the protection of Krishna, accepting Krishna as one's master and guardian, complete self-surrender, and utter humility. These are the 6 limbs of surrender. And he wrote, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote the book Sharanagati, the process of surrender, highlighting each of these, like songs on humility, songs on self-surrender, songs on accepting the Lord as one's guardian and master, songs on the confidence in the Lord's protection, songs on how I will reject everything that is not favorable to Krishna consciousness, and songs on how I will accept everything favorable to Krishna consciousness. And with that we can get a very, very deep understanding of what is Sharanagati. And ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. Chapter 4, text 11 of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says, and in another way, in another place, Krishna told Brahma, Yadrishi Yadrishi Shraddha Siddhir Bhavati Tadrishi in Brahma Samhita. That means, as much as one surrenders to the Lord, as much as one has faith in the Lord and His holy name, that much he will get the benefit. Fire burns, and with fire we can cook. Now if I light a fire and I put the pot hanging from the ceiling, how is it going to cook? Maybe that fire will heat up the room, and over a period of few days and a few weeks, maybe it gets cooked. By the time it gets rotten inside. So how distant we are from the fire, how distant the substance is, that slow or fast it cooks. If it is far away, it will not even cook. So what I am saying is, how close we are, how surrendered we are to the Lord, that much the effect will be there. So that's why we don't see the result. If I am chanting and I am not freed of all sinful reaction, I still have some weird thoughts going on in my head, and that's because I did not fully surrender to the holy name of Krishna. Otherwise, these are the effects of the holy name of Krishna. Let's see some verses. Yannamadeya shravananukirtanad yat prahvanad yat smaranad apekvachit svadopi sadyah savanaya kalpate kutah punaste bhagavannu darshanat. To say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face, even a person born in a family of dog eaters, there is a Chandala, immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about Him, hears about His pastimes, offers Him obeisances, or even remembers Him. Even a Chandala, by just taking the holy name of the Lord, can get completely purified. Not only purified, he becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. This is the power of the holy name. Next verse also is very important. This is spoken by Devahuti, mother of Kapiladev, an incarnation of Krishna in the Satya Yuga. Aho badashvapachoto gariyan yajjihvagre vartate nama tubhyam te pustapaste juhuvuhu sasnurarya brahmano churnama grinanti yete. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. It means if one has come to the point of chanting, it is an extreme fortunate position that one is already deemed to have completed all the other purificatory rituals and processes. Now, let's look at this. Beautiful verse. Ayam hi krita nirvesho janma kotyam hasamapi yad vyajahara vivasho nama swastyayanam harehe. Beautiful. Now you see, Ajamal has already atoned for all his sinful actions. Indeed, he has atoned not only for sins performed in one life, but for those performed in millions of lives. For in a helpless condition, he chanted the holy name of Narayana. Even though he did not chant purely, he chanted without offense, and therefore he is now pure and eligible for liberation. If you know the life of Ajamal, he did everything wrong in his life. But in the beginning of his life, he was actually a very devoted person. But in his youth, he lost his way. He was a married man, responsible, But then he found this prostitute and he went after the prostitute, and he brought the prostitute home, and he kicked out his wife and kicked out his elderly parents, and he lived with the prostitute, and he had 10 children from her, eating her food, and to maintain such a large family he was, doing all kinds of sinful activities. And at the end of his life, somehow by good fortune, because he did something to Krishna, and he did something in devotional service to Krishna in his younger days, somehow or other he had the good fortune that he named his last son Narayana, which was the name of the Lord. And when he was about to die, he was 88 years old, he was about to die, and he saw these Yamadutas, servants of Yamaraj, coming to take him away to hell. At that time, he did not know what to do. The son was there. So just out of affection, out of helplessness, he called out Narayana, like that. Just for that chanting, this verse is mentioned here. So then there was this debate. So Yamadutas were coming to capture him, and when he chanted this Narayana Dutas, Vishnu Dutas, they came, the servants of Vishnu, beautiful in their bodily features, exactly like Vishnu, four-handed form, and they came immediately to stop the Yamadutas. You cannot take the soul. Yamadutas were never in their history were they stopped at any time. Nobody could stop them. However strong a person was, nobody could stop them in taking him away to hell. But this was the first time, unprecedented, they were stopped. Vishnuduta stopped them. You can't take this soul. Go back. Yamadutas were, who are you? How can you? He is a completely sinful person. Entire life was full of sin. What is this? Who are you? We have never seen you. You look like very exalted personalities. You seem to be knowing all religious principles, but how can you say that this person is now pure? That we cannot take him to hell? No, he is pure. Why? This is their argument. That he chanted this name Narayana once, and that too not even referring to the Narayana, the Lord, Narayana, his son. The Acharyas actually give commentary that when he chanted the name Narayana referring to his son, he actually remembered the Narayana that he used to worship in his younger days, as a boy, as a brahmachari. That actually purified him. You see how powerful is the holy name. That Vishnudutas even argued. Indeed, he has atoned not only for sins performed in one life, but for those performed in millions of lives. For in a helpless condition, he chanted the holy name of Narayana. Even though he did not chant purely, he chanted without offense. And therefore, he is now pure and eligible for liberation. This looks like a completely unfair, right? But that is the thing. The fairness is that we are actually being punished in this material world only for one reason. Why are we in this material world? Only for one reason. We have neglected Krishna. We are his eternal servants, but we forgot that, or we rather wanted to forget that. And Krishna facilitated our forgetfulness, and therefore we have forgotten. And now we are here trying to become the Lord, becoming a competitor of the Lord. The Lord is the only master and owner of everything, but we want to be a competitor. I want to own this, I want to be a master of this, like this. We want to be the controller. That is our crime. So if we surrender back to Krishna, and that's it, all our sins are, mokshisham, aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshisham. I'll relieve you of all sinful reactions if you surrender to me. That surrender starts with chanting. And if you see here in the purport, there are beautiful verses quoted here. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes the following verses from the Smriti Shastra. Namno hi yavati shakti papa nirharane harehe tavat kartum na shaknoti patakam pataki naraha. Beautiful. Simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reactions to more sins than he is able to commit. Brihad Vishnu Purana. Avashenapi yannamni kirtite sarvapatakaye puman vimuchyate sadyah Simhatrastair mrigairiva. If one chants the holy name of the Lord even in a helpless condition or without desiring to do so, all the reactions of his sinful life depart. Just as when a lion roars, all the small animals flee in fear. Garuda Purana. When a lion roars, it is heard for 5 miles in the forest. It's not just like, he's shouting and can be heard from 100 meters. No, 5 miles away you can hear the roar of the lion. So loud is the roar. And the animals, they flee in fear when the lion roar is heard. Like that, when one holy name is chanted, the sinful activities like those other animals flee in fear. Then, Sakraducharitam yena harirityaksharaddvayam baddha parikarastena moksha yagamanam prati. By once chanting the holy name of the Lord, which consists of the 2 syllables ha and ri, one guarantees his path to liberation. Skanda Purana. These are some of the reasons why the Vishnudutas objected to the Yamadutas taking Ajamil to the court of Yamaraj. There are unlimited number of verses glorifying the holy name of Krishna. The only reason why we do not see the same effect when we are chanting is only because of our lack of Sharanagati. Prabhupada said 1 second is enough, 1 moment is enough to become completely Krishna conscious. 1 moment, that's all. But then why are we not becoming fully Krishna conscious and even after many years? It's only because we are not surrendering 100%. If we surrender 100% to Krishna, 1 moment is enough to become completely Krishna conscious and never return. But because we are not, so therefore it's taking time. So the only factor that is slowing it down is us, not the holy name or maybe these are all exaggerations, these are, holy name is actually, not that powerful. One may go into this kind of mentality, doubting the holy name of the Lord, because we don't see the results. I will see the result of a recipe by following exactly the recipe. But if I am following something else, of course I will not get the result. I cannot then doubt the recipe. I should doubt myself. I am not following the recipe 100%. And of course, and then I will not get the 100% dish that I want to do. So, the recipe is Sharanagati, surrender. And that surrender starts with surrendering to a guru, a bona fide guru who is coming in the authorized disciplic succession. Parampara. Evam parampara praptam mimam rajarsho viduhu. In this parampara system. That is the Adav Guru Ashrayam Sadharma Prichha. Guru Padashrayastasya Diksha Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam Vishrambhena Guru Seva Sadhu Vartmanu Vartanam Sadharma Prichha Bhogadi Tyaga Krishna Sahetave. When you bow down, your head must touch the ground. No. You touched your palms. Head to the ground. Yes. And full Dandavat Pranam, Sashtanga Pranam. You are doing Panchanga Pranam. So, this is the first step in surrender. Bowing down to the properly to the spiritual master. Adav Gurvashrayam Sadharma Prichha. Guru Padashrayastasya Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam Vishrambhena Guru Seva Sadhu Vartmanu Vartanam Sadharma Prichha Bhogadi Tyaga Krishnasya Hetave. So this is the formula for surrender. What is that? This is the verse, the original verse of the Bhagavatam, and then the Rupa Goswami gives the verse which I just quoted. Guru Shushrusheya Bhaktya Sarvalabdharpanena cha Sangena Sadhu Bhaktanam Ishvararadhanena cha Shraddhaya Tatkathayam cha Kirtanayar Gunakarmanam Tatpadamburuhadhyana Tallingeksharhanadihi. One must accept the bona fide spiritual master and render service unto him with great devotion and faith. Whatever one has in one's possession should be offered to the spiritual master, and in the association of saintly persons and devotees one should worship the Lord, hear the glories of the Lord with faith, glorify the transcendental qualities and activities of the Lord, always meditate on the Lord's lotus feet and worship the deity of the Lord strictly according to the injunctions of the Shastra and Guru. And this is the verse that I just quoted. This is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So one's first duty is to accept a bona fide spiritual master. The student or disciple should be very inquisitive. He should be eager to know the complete truth about eternal religion, Sanatana Dharma. The words Guru Shushrushya mean that one should personally serve the spiritual master by giving him bodily comforts, helping him in bathing, dressing, sleeping, eating, and so on. This is called Guru Shushrushyanam. A disciple should serve the spiritual master as a menial servant, and whatever he has in his possession should be dedicated to the spiritual master. Pranaya Arthaya Dhiya Vacha. So of course you can read this purport. But this is the point. And if one is not close to the body of the spiritual master, and even if he is, one should without fail follow the instructions of the spiritual master. There was, because one should serve as a menial servant, so there was this point where Prabhupada was, there were like 10 servants there, waiting to serve Prabhupada. He would say, why I need 10 people? I need just one person here. The rest of them you go out for Sankirtan, for book distribution, chanting on the street. So he said, so that is the thing. It's not that, even if the spiritual master is personally present, the instructions of the spiritual master can be carried out anywhere, whether near or far. The bodily service we can only offer when he is near. But the instructions of the spiritual master should always be carried out, and one should also serve the instructions and even offering physical service to the Shiksha Gurus who are exalted representatives of the spiritual master. We should also serve them. In that way we can advance. And that is the beginning of perfection, beginning of surrendering process. There are so many details, but it all starts with taking shelter of the spiritual master and chanting the holy name of Krishna. And of course, Shravanam Kirtanam, listening to the topics of Krishna Katha. So we'll stop it here. Any questions or comments on this topic? Master of all devotees. Gopis. No. He is actually at the. No. He was a guardian outside the Raslila arena. And in one sense, the gopis used to worship Lord Shiva to get Krishna as their husband. So that is another reason. They in fact worshipped even Durga Devi, Katyayani Vrata. 1 month they follow in Vrindavan also. If you see this 10:22-4, Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayoginyadhishwari Nanda Gopasutam Devi Patim Me Kurute Namaha Iti Mantram Japantyastha Pujam Chakruha Kumarika. Each of the young unmarried girls performed her worship while chanting the following mantra. O Goddess Katyayani, O great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power and mighty controller of all, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. So it is customary in India that the girls they worship Lord Shiva to get a good husband. So the gopis also used to do this to get Krishna as their husband. Rukmini. Yeah. Rukmini also did that. There's something interesting here. Let's read a bit about it. According to the various acharyas, the goddess Durga mentioned in this verse is not the illusory energy of Krishna called Maya, but rather the internal potency of the Lord known as Yogamaya. Now, The only difference between Maya and Yogamaya is our disposition. The same energy works in this way and that way. Like the police is the same, but the attitude of the thief towards the policeman and the honest citizen towards the policeman is very different. The thief feels fear when he sees the police. The honest citizen, he feels protection when he sees the police. He feels safe, whereas the thief feels unsafe in the presence of the exact same policeman. So, it is the same energy of the Lord, but she is perceived differently according to the disposition of the observer. If one is not a devotee, he will be afraid, or she will thwart his materialistic desires. So that's why they always try to appease her by doing Durga Puja and all. But a devotee, he sees her differently. He sees her as a Vaishnavi Devi. She is a great devotee. And please engage me in his service. So that's why the Acharyas have commented like that. Internal potency of the Lord known as Yogamaya. The distinction between internal and external or illusory potency of the Lord is described in the Narada Pancharatra in the conversation between Shruti and Vidya. Janatyeka parakantam saiva durga tadatmika ya paraparamashaktir mahavishnu-swarupini yasya vijnana-matrena paranam paramatmanah muhurtad deva-devasya praptir-bhavati nanyatha ekeyam prema sarvasva svabhava gokuleshwari anaya sulabhogneya adidevo khileshwarah asya avarika shaktir mahamaya khileshwari yaya mugdam jagat sarvam sarve dehabhimaninah. The Lord's inferior potency known as Durga is dedicated to his loving service. Being the Lord's potency, this inferior energy is non-different from him. There is another superior potency whose form is on the same spiritual level as that of God himself. Simply by scientifically understanding this supreme potency, one can immediately achieve the supreme soul of all souls, who is the Lord of all lords. There is no other process to achieve him. That supreme potency of the Lord is known as Gokuleshwari, the goddess of Gokula. This is Radharani. Her nature is to be completely absorbed in love of God, and through her one can easily obtain the primeval God, the Lord of all that be. This internal potency of the Lord has a covering potency known as Mahamaya, who rules the material world. In fact, she bewilders the entire universe, and thus everyone within the universe falsely identifies himself with the material body. So this is Radharani's, position. Actually, there was a funny comment that was passed by someone in one of the fairs that we were in the Deepavali, not in the Deepavali Expo, the Salam India Expo. I was not there at the time, I just went out and was coming back. So devotees, I think Nishita Mataji, she was talking to her. So Nishita Mataji asked her to take the Krishna book, and she saw the Radharani's picture. No, I don't want. Because my husband just came out of extramarital affair. I don't want him to go into it. And Radharani, had this extramarital affair. I don't want to. How nonsense it is. Argument. So, the symbol of chastity is Radharani, actually. Srimati Radharani, Lakshmi, who is very chaste, who is known as the most chaste wife, Sita. The Lakshmi, she underwent such austerity to get into the Raslila, but she was not admitted. That means her chastity is no match to the gopis' chastity. Although apparently they look like, they're having some extramarital affair with Krishna. We will come to that. But if they were so unchaste, why would Lakshmi even worship Radharani and try to get worship the Lord to get into the Raslila? So much tapasya she did, still she could not enter. That means her supreme chastity is still not equal to Radharani's or even the gopis' chastity. What to speak of Radharani? She could not even match the gopis' chastity. And if the gopis are actually dancing with Krishna, Is that unchaste? If there is husband and wife here, devotee, there are so many women devotees also. They have husband and they are chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Are they having extramarital affair with Krishna? Oh, nonsense is it? He is the supreme soul of all souls. He is the Paramatma in everyone's heart. No, that's not an extramarital affair. That is one's original position with the Lord. In fact, the relationship that one has with so-called husband, those are illusory. Those are other relationships which we have created secondary to our relationship with Krishna. Our primary relationship is with Krishna. Any other relationship is an extramarital affair, actually, technically. We are already having extramarital affair. Because actually the Lord is our real pati. You know that word is there? What is that word? 2, 4, 10 is it? Oh, I forgot. What is the Sanskrit patim? Yes, 2, 4, 20. श्रियः पतिर्यज्ञपतिः प्रजापतिर्धियां पतिर्लोकपतिर्धरापतिः पतिर्गतिश्चान्धकवृष्णिसात्वतां प्रसीदतां मे भगवान् सतां पतिः. May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipable Lord of all devotees, the protector and glory of all the kings like Andaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices, and therefore the leader of all living entities, the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on the earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful upon me. So, in this verse, there are 8 times used, the word pati is used. So, our real pati is the Lord. Pati also means husband. So, we have left him and having other relationships now. Those are actually illicit relationships which we are having in the material world. And here is a woman who is commenting that Radharani is an unchaste woman. I don't want I respect Radha Krishna, but I don't want, now I just came out, my husband just came out of one relationship, I don't want more. This is the this is the understanding people have about our own scriptures, our own, Krishna, Arjuna, you should not have. Many people come up with this always. Can we have Mahabharata in home? What do you say? They ask like this. Some people straight away say, no, I was told that we should not have Mahabharata in the home, because we will have family fights. As if your family is very peaceful now and having 0 fights. Yeah? All fights will be stopped if we take to the instruction of Krishna. Bhagavad Gita. So we condemn our own scriptures. Then how are we going to advance? It's an illusion. So any questions or comments? Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhi. Why this verse was quoted, I don't understand. These are all the godly qualities. Anyway. So, we'll stop it here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanand.